point of doing this demonstration here is to showcase Fusion mineral paint, the steps of the prep, the paint, and the finish. So depending on the projects that you're working on yourself, I do want to answer all of your questions, even if specific as you have with the furniture piece that you're looking to refinish, whether it's a cabinet for your bathroom or your kitchen. There's lots of different materials and prep processes. So I want to educate you and feel comfortable with the products before you even tackle your own, so that you have all the information that you need. We have, I think I've brought all the different types of materials here to showcase. Again, I have like a step-by-step instruction for you with the preps and everything written down, but if you want to take notes, or we're live on Facebook as well. So we've got Spencer behind the camera. Please feel free to post your questions on Facebook, and Spencer will let me know so that I can answer your questions too. What kind of projects are you guys looking to refinish yourselves? Bathroom cabinets? Yeah. End tables? This is a drawer from one of my end tables. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, an antique dresser with a mirror. Yeah. And that's the great thing. I think people sometimes think that refinishing antiques is like, why would you do that? Don't touch it. I think if you can add life to a project and keep it out of the landfills, and if it's something that's you've inherited, you can still keep the memory of that piece, but get it to suit your home and your style. And with paint, you can easily do that. So that's great. Do you have a project that you're?
I have like an antique end table, like a little kind of half wall table that I have my entrance way. That's just nothing's going on with it. You need something going on.
You need some color? Some zhuzh. Okay, awesome. Have you guys all heard of Fusion Mineral Paint before? Okay, great. So Fusion Mineral Paint is a Canadian company. So it's supporting Canadian, which is great. The paint that they offer comes in pint size, and they also come in testers. The pint size, I mean, we use this for our craft projects, but it is made and formulated for furniture refinishing for its durability. So it's water-based, it's acrylic, it just has that extra resin in it, which makes it durable, and it has the built-in primer. So really all you need to do is buy this. There are instances where you might want to buy a primer. The primer that they recommend is called Benzinzer, and you can get that at Rona. That would be for something that's like made of cherry, any kind of furniture that might have pigment in the wood that will potentially discolor the natural paint pigment, just because the wood is so, I don't, what's the word? It can like release still colors from the natural wood. Cherry is an excellent example because it gives off that red tone. So if you want to not have any red undertones to it, then a primer is an example where you would use that for. I like to keep things simple. I cheat all the time with this paint. I am very impatient. So it says to wait 4 hours in between coat. Sometimes I wait 2 hours. So I do veer away from instructions sometimes. I do test this paint quite a bit and have had lots of success. But one of the biggest things that you have to make sure of with this paint is that you don't overwork it. But I'm going to get into a lot of those details after. So first of all, let's just talk about materials. So materials, there's pine. This is actually maple. It's a hardwood, but anything that's unfinished, cabinets with like a bevel on it. This one has very simple, but the antique furnitures might have more ornate trim to it. Again, just different types of things to look for. If you're refinishing cabinets for your kitchen or for your bathroom, usually a grade that they use is a finish with a gloss on it. Easy to refinish. This is a lacquer base with a clear lacquer gloss on it. No problem, and I'm going to demonstrate how to prep this piece. Also, this one here is pine. This is like your 1980s. This is from my like very first bedroom set, you know? And again, this I had refinished about 12 years ago with that distressed look. And I used a horrible wall paint. And I'm going to show you how to refinish this. Now that I know better now, it's time for a refresh on that. So I'm going to demonstrate on this. And then over here, I also have, oops, this is IKEA cabinet. This is like one of those Billy the Bookcase type. This used to be white. You can see from the inside of the drawer. So anything that's laminated, you can also repaint. I know. You're like, oh, another project. Yeah. Oh, so funny. Yeah. So again, super easy to refresh with a new paint color. And the fun thing about paint colors too is if you get bored of a paint color, you just repaint it, right? Any questions so far? Okay. So one of the first steps that you need to take is the prep. With lots of paints, people think, well, I only want to deal with a paint where you don't need to prep and you don't need to sand. Unfortunately, if you want good results, you do need to take the steps to do a good prep, which entails cleaning your project. So I brought this, like I said, from my home, and I do notice that there's like, I'm gonna assume it's coffee drip marks on the drawer front. And I left this here because any bathroom vanity, you will probably see water drip marks. You might see toothpaste. You might see hairspray. Any of the everyday things that you use on a daily basis. If we could solve the dirt and the dust problem, we would all be billionaires, but it's just something that we're going to have to clean. So, Fusion Mineral Paint has a product called TSP Alternative. You probably say, well, I've got TSP at home. I'll just use that. That is a toxic powder in that little milk carton kind of container, which is difficult to use because you need to wear gloves. You don't want to get that on your skin. You also want to be very careful because after you wash your product with it, you actually have to wash that finish that it leaves off after with clear water. So it becomes a two-step process with that TSP. And if you don't clean off the TSP properly, oh,
Shelly's wondering, can this paint be used in a paint sprayer? She's refinishing her kitchen cabinets.
that's an awesome question. You can totally refinish this with a spray. Do not water it down. If you have a spray gun, you just pour it right out of the container into your gun and spray it as is. Don't ever add water. Actually, that's a lie. If you add water, yeah, just kidding. If you add water, it does just change the formula of the paint and doesn't make it as durable. So sometimes you can add water to thin things down, but then it changes the durability. So you would have to sometimes add a top coat to it. Sometimes I add water when I want to create a stain. So you can use that on, especially anything that's a raw wood. You can water it down and it makes a beautiful stain color. But if you're spraying specifically with a spray gun, just pour the paint right in. All of their colors work great that way. Yeah, and I've done a lot of spraying in my time, and it's a beautiful, beautiful paint to do that with, and easy cleanup because it's water-based, water cleanup. Yeah. So TSP alternative here that we have is a concentrate. It's a concentrate, and you literally just take a mason jar full of water, and then I'm just going to grab a couple of capfuls, and they call it TSP. Oh, see, look at too much. See, I don't worry about that. They call it a TSP alternative because it's not like a TSP on the market. It's organic, and you use it to wash your stuff down, and then you just let it dry, and you're good to go. Yeah. So I have a paint roller kit here, and it comes with some rags, so you can use those to clean up. I have, um, no, you can use it. Do not use TSP alternative as a cleaning agent because it's actually a degreaser. So it takes the finish off of whatever you're cleaning with it. So if you were to refinish or even wipe down like an oven fan, you would take that finish right off of the metal. So it would take that sheen off of it. So that would not be a good example of how to use it. Although it will clean the crap out of it and it'll look amazing, then it takes that finish off of it. So it's hard to wash. But when it comes to like furniture refinishing, you'll see if I wash this down, it won't be as shiny. So this clear lacquer, it just kind of takes that finish off, especially with bathroom cabinets. You'll see all of that hairspray and stuff. It just turns it to like a matte color when you wash it with that. So if you are going to be repainting something, anything, walls, cabinets, yeah, it's a perfect product to use. Yep. Sometimes when I did my kitchen cabinets, I had to actually do this 2 or 3 times just to remove all the grease, because the first time you do it, you don't realize how dirty something is. And then again, the prep is the most important part because this will determine how well the paint sticks to your piece. Things with like a lot of ornate details to it sometimes are really hard to get in there to clean. And that's okay too. It's mostly surfaces where you know is going to be handled a lot, where where it's potential for scratching. Yeah. So you can see I just dipped my rag into this piece and all of my drip marks on my piece are all coming off. Sorry? A toothbrush is great. Yep. Sometimes you need to take a little like Q-tip and stuff to get in there. That works great too. Yeah, no, yeah, an old toothbrush is a great thing to use. So I don't know if you can see, but my coffee stains, it's just super clear. Just that thing that we all love to do is clean. Okay, so I'll put this over here. Anything, if you've got tape or stickers or on anything too, you can use like a Goo Gone or something as well. Sometimes furniture pieces that have been refinished with a chalk paint have a wax over top of it. So if you have furniture pieces that you know have been used with, you have to remove the wax because the wax will repel fusion mineral paint. And you'll be able to tell right away if you do a test patch. So you just paint it, it'll lace, it'll look like a doily. It'll kind of like separate, and that's how you know that there's a substrate on there. Usually it's a wax. Then you have to just remove it. Also furniture pieces from like the 1950s or 60s that have like that fire retardant that they used to spray on like laminated, the backings of like buffets and stuff was never real wood. That stuff is super hard to paint sometimes if they've used that. So always a test patch is always good to use to test it. And again, if you do see that it does that, I'll just finish cleaning this a little bit. There is a product and it's called Ultra Grip. And Ultra Grip just makes the impossible possible, is what they say. Anything that's not supposed to be repainted, it makes it durable enough to paint. So this would be like a sandwich. So you would have your furniture piece, you would clean it, you would apply Ultra Grip. This is required on anything that's laminated. So all of those IKEA pieces, you would use this first. And we've done workshops before where you paint mason jars. Anything that's glass, you can make it paintable as well. So it's not soft, so you can't scrape it off anymore. Yeah. So this needs to be applied super, super thin. Less is best on this, using a thin brush. Actually, do we have like our 2-inch brushes, like the workshop brushes? Yeah. So the thing with the Ultra Grip, that's super important too. Thank you, Kim. I'll just call you Vanna. Anything that's super thin, less is best with this, because if you over apply this, then what will happen is you'll see brush strokes. If you have brush strokes on the Ultra Grip and it goes too heavy, then your paint color will go on looking like it's got brush strokes as well, because that's the base of how it was painted. So with anything, oh, pass it around. Thank you. Too funny. That's, yeah. So if you guys are crafters and you've heard of Mod Podge, Mod Podge is the same idea where it goes on white and then it dries clear. That does the same thing. Yeah.
you're cleaning something like that, do you use the TSP alternative and then the ultra grip? Is that what you do?
Correct. Yep. So you always TSP first, and then after TSPing, you actually need to sand it, give a little bit of a scuff sand. So depending on if you're working on a piece. Obviously, if you wanted to stain something, you would have to sand it down to raw wood. But if you are simply wanting to add another color to it, then just a scuff sand is all you need to do. So working indoors with this paint is great. You have to make sure that the temperature is over 10 degrees. So if you're working on a project that's in your garage, make sure that the temperature is stable. We've had a lot of customers come in and say, I've worked on a piece and I did the first coat and it hasn't cured well, or it's super soft, or it has a weird texture to it. Temperature will do that. So you have to, I did a furniture piece on my patio. I was a little overzealous. It was a spring day. It was really warm out, but the temperature at night got really cool. It actually crackled because it went too cold too fast. So I just sanded it down and put another coat on it. It was fine. But in order to, make sure that the paint is being used properly, the temperature is also the first thing to look at. And I paint inside my living room. Totally. Just paint inside. Kitchen cabinets, you can't move them, right? Bathroom vanities, the same thing. This paint has like hardly any scent to it. So it's another reason why I like the paint. Yeah.
Another question. But the TSP alternative, I see you've got a jar there.
Yes.
It doesn't look like you need a lot of it.
Not at all. So
you just go and can you keep it for another day? Like,
I wouldn't, because it's dirty. Can you see how ready my water is already dirty just from washing that down? You have lots in here, so you would just want to use new capfuls of TSP every time you clean something. So I could go ahead and do my second washing with this same jar, but you'll see that the water just keeps on getting dirtier and dirtier. So I'd never want to keep this. I just want to, because like a capful, like I said, goes a long way. Yeah. Any other questions there? We're good to go. Okay, so this one here is already dry. This I can see is still wet. You can see, I don't know if you can see the sheen on it. And that's just because of the lacquer finish. It's repelling the water is what it's doing. And you can just let that air dry. For today, I might take a rag and just dry it off, but we have enough other stuff to talk about in between. So prep work. In our cabinet refinishing, we have a kit that has this 320 grit sandpaper. It's not that gritty. You don't want a lower grit sandpaper. Lower grit meaning like an 80 grit, because it's too coarse. It'll actually leave sand marks in it. It'll scratch your surface too much. So a 220, 320 grit sandpaper is perfect for refinishing. And then in between coats, these sanding pads come with the roller kit. You can see I've used this before. These sanding pads are like a 400 grit sandpaper, super fine. It's got the foam core backing, so it's reusable. I just rinse it off because it's usually just dust that ends up being embedded in it, and you can get lots of wear in that. And this is only used in between coats. So 320 grit, this is a huge sheet of paper. You're not going to need all of that. So a lot of times I'll rip it into 4. Let's see if I'm going to be able to do this. Yeah, you can do that, or a wood block. I think we have scrap. It is, yeah. Here we go. Like a sanding block. Yep. And I'm sure you could grab a sanding block as well. Yeah. And you can just wrap it around like that. Yep. Mouse sanders sometimes can be too much to take to it. What can happen is if you take a mouse sander and you don't do an even sanding job, then you'll have heavier paint on one side than the other. If you over sand, then the wood becomes too porous. And then the paint just like absorbs right into it. And it's totally not necessary to waste all that extra paint. It's almost like overworking it. So just with your 220, I like to just fold my sandpaper. That's it. That's like super quick. Like I said, like it doesn't create a lot of dust. And then just take a rag and wipe it off. So you can see, I will actually sand. This is a cabinet that was raw, and then this has got one coat on it, and I am going to so you can feel, I'm super tactile when I work on my projects too. You can see where I've sanded and where I haven't. Anytime you add paint to wood, it raises the grain of the wood. So you want to make sure that sanding is that extra step. And I'll get you guys just to move that cabinet down if you can. You can feel the texture difference, right? And it's just one extra step just to making sure that your project is really smooth. And it will look like you have that spray finish look with the application of a brush or a roller. So that's really nice too. Yeah. Cool. Any questions? Or you're like, yes, I'm going to do this. Yeah.
This may be a silly question, but I was, some of the Facebook sites I've been looking at,
Yep.
they talk about using a paper bag as a sander, almost like a final sanding, and I was sort of wondering, is that reasonable, or is that like, what kind of grip would that be?
Yeah, I mean, you can do that. That is like a super fine. That's like if you already have an immaculate finish and it's almost like buffing. It would be the same as buffing shoes with a very soft brush. Does the same. If you have a paper bag, you can try it. Yeah, I don't make it part of the regular process that I do, but yes, lots of people do it. And again, this is the process that I do. You're going to get lots of different advice online. This is what I've had success with this product, all of these from Fusion Mineral Paint. And again, some people have different techniques that they're very successful with as well. Again, I like to just keep things simple and easy. So the less supplies I need to complete something, the better. Yeah. Okay, so we have our prep, so the TSP and the sanding, and then we're ready for painting. So I know, you're like, oh, that was it. I know. So the bigger the piece, obviously, the longer it takes. So refinishing something like your cabinets is a longer process. You could even do one day of your prep and your sanding, then do a first coat. It does depend on how good of a job you want to do. Like there's a lot of people who will take the cabinet doors off. They'll paint the insides, the outsides. You've got the base and the frame of the stuff that you want to paint as well. So taping off is super important, depending on where your cabinets join. My cabinets go straight to my ceiling, so I actually had to tape off my ceiling. But those things are super important to do as well. Okay. And again, I don't paint the inside of my cabinets. Figure if you're looking inside my cabinets, yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. Okay, so paintbrushes. Which paintbrush is best for the product or project that you're working on? Fusion Mineral Paint has these brushes made in Germany. They're a Style Meister brand. They're a synthetic fiber brush. These are as soft as a makeup brush. They're amazing brushes to use. Oh yeah, thank you, Vanna. Yeah. The brushes that Kim's passing around, the brush here, the round one, I have used that brush. So that is a used clean brush. This is a brand new brush. So you can see that they look almost exactly the same. The bristles are super soft. The rounder one there, this one that I'm holding in my hand, is the most versatile brush. I use this brush for almost absolutely everything. The only thing that I wouldn't use this brush for is something like kitchen chairs where there's lots of spindles, because this brush would be too thick. You'd get too heavy paint trying to get in between. In that case, we would use, these are called zebra brushes. These are a zebra brand. And again, these are also a beautiful brush. It is a lesser price point. But you can still get just as quality of a paint out of it. So your table, can you explain a little bit more? Like just the table legs are skinny?
Yeah, yeah. And then got like, of course the knots on them as they go down.
No, then this would be fine. It would be anything that, like, if you have to get in between a slat of something. So if it's just the leg, this is perfect for it. Yeah, yeah. Um, thank you. So this would be great for that. It's something that's skinny and square, so you can get into the grooves. This here is an angled brush. The angled brushes, it's just personal preference. This can fit in your hand. It has the shorter handle. It's a little bit narrower, so you'll use less paint. This one is a little bit thicker with the longer bristles and a longer handle. This can also be used for your walls, like trim and stuff. The reason why I prefer the round brush over an angled brush is just because the round brush actually soaks up all of that extra paint. So if you're doing a cabinet that has a lot of angles on it, you will get less drip marks because you don't have that crisp angle. Sometimes if you get too much paint on the tip of the angle, you can get really heavy paint lines on your edges. So I find that this brush actually soaks up a lot more paint and you use less of it because you're just using the fibers are just coated with color, really. And then it can go into the grooves of everything and then go on your surfaces. I've even done my table, a kitchen table with this as well. So with the first coat, because when you put this flat, it does fan off and it has a bigger surface area, which is great. Like I said, this isn't a bit more of an investment. It's a $36 brush versus this as a $16 brush. So again, if you're just doing your first project and you're thinking you don't know if you're going to be getting into furniture refinishing at all, then again, these brushes do just the same. You can get the same look out of that. The 2-inch brush here is also great. And this is a little bit less expensive as well, but it's got the same quality bristles as the $36 brush. Then we get into some like crazy brushes. We call this the ultimate. This is like the Cadillac of paintbrushes. This is for a finishing coat. So a lot of our furniture refinishers have this brush. This is a really thin brush that has a firm bristle to it. So it's great for top coats, anything with a clear coat on it, because you do a really thin coat of it. And maybe Kim, I'll get you to pass that around too so you can see. And that's like a $75 brush. So you can get really high end with your brushes. Again, not something if you're looking to really get into furniture refinishing for the quality with a top coat. Yeah, or a last coat for a tabletop where you're just putting a super thin coat on it. It's great. Covers a big surface area, really thin. Is there like too many brushes to choose from? Is that like, oh, what brush do I pick? And that's the thing. So we do have some care instructions too, and I'll show you that afterwards. And you can see that this is the brush that I use at home. The string stays on. Yes, that was the first thing that I wanted to do was get rid of the string because it looked like just something that was extra and cumbersome. So this green string actually keeps the bristles from fanning because the bristle goes super long to the bottom. Yeah. And it can get full of paint. It doesn't matter. It just dries on there. Okay, so clean prep brush. So for a brush, I'm going to use my number 20 Stylmeister brush. I have Chateau here, which is like a nice creamy kind of taupey color. And this one I've already prepped and sanded. So I will, again, super simple. I don't even pour the paint out. I just dip it right into the container. And this jar goes really far. For example, the stools that you're sitting on right now, we painted 13 stools.